Okay, great. So, hello everyone. I'm Naveen Twarakavi, a senior digital agriculture specialist at Agriculture, Food, Nature, and Rural Development Sector Group in ADB. Welcome to ADB Circular Economy webinar series today. Our topic for today is closing the loop on food waste with insect bioconversion. Now, reducing the food loss and waste, is something everyone recognizes as a problem that needs to be addressed if we were to achieve our SDG goals. Globally, around 13% of the food produced is lost between harvest and retail, while an estimated 17% of food production is wasted in households, in the food service, and in retail altogether. So this is clearly a problem we need to address. ADB is especially, interested in emerging technologies that have the potential to scale and address global problems. And today we will explore the potential of one such technology, what we call as insect bioconversion, and its ability to close the loop on food waste. Now, from small villages to our large urban centers, insect bioconversion offers a solution to manage food and other organic waste streams. While the technology may seem, very niche and very crude, and based on your perspective at face value, I think it definitely deserves a deeper exploration and understanding to uncover the potential that it carries. So, with that, we have two speakers who are, I would say, very well represent this opportunity, and they are Ms. Janine Malcolm and Mr. Neil Ian Lumanland. So let me introduce briefly them. They have a wide, experience, but starting with Janine, she is a board member of the Insect Protein Association of Australia, the Australian Emerging Industry Technology Hub Committee member. She is a qualified chemical engineer and an educator. Uh, you know, after her rich experience in pharmaceutical and biotech sector, as well as in education, in 2019, Janine started Mobius Farms after learning about the opportunities in the circular economy aspect of rearing insect on waste streams, right? So as a source of protein. So looking forward to listening to her today. Our other speaker is Neil. Neil is a circular economy and biotechnology professional specializing in the valorization of waste biomass to address climate change and sustainable development goals. So he has, again, a wide range of practical experiences in microbial biotechnology, in food and agriculture, aquaculture, and related fields. He has been an independent consultant since 2005, and he founded DMFP, a probiotics manufacturing business for the poultry and livestock industry in the Philippines. With that, a warm welcome to both of our speakers, and I hand over the floor to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Naveen. Let me just share my screen, hopefully. My name's Janine Malcolm. I'm based here in the beautiful Ross Valley in South Australia. Let me just get my web camera sorted out. I'm a co-founder and manager of Mobius Farms, and we are a farm with a difference. We convert food waste into value using insects, and I'm excited to be talking to you today with Neil about the possibilities of insect bioconversion. Thank you to the ADB and the Circular Economy team and all in attendance for this opportunity. May I say that tomorrow, being the International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste, is the perfect timing for this webinar. As Naveen mentioned, sorry, next slide, thanks, Ice. As Naveen mentioned, less than 2% of the biological nutrients within our food systems are looped back to productive use, which is pretty shocking. 1/3 of food produced globally, which is approximately $1 trillion US, is wasted each year, and yet more than 10% of the world's population goes hungry. Synthetic fertilizers and pesticides are well known to pollute our soils and our waterways and having long-term impacts on our ecosystems. Multiple reports, including the UNEP's Food Waste Index report, attempt to quantify the size of the food waste problem globally, but it's clear from this report that many countries lack sufficient data on the size of the problem, and hence it's really challenging to develop appropriate policies and identify potential solutions. Next slide, please, Ice. In 2019, it's estimated about 931 million tonnes were removed from the human food supply chain. And this is either through landfill, through waste, through composting, and as I've been made aware, even combustion in landfills. When food is discarded, all of that input that is used in producing, processing, transporting, and storing, and discarding food is also wasted, that human and natural capital. The food loss and waste also exacerbates the climate change crisis with its significant greenhouse gas footprint. Global food waste equates to approximately 3.3 billion tonnes of CO2, or 6% of the total global emissions, which is about 3 times that of the global aviation emissions. The connection between food loss and waste and climate change is increasingly recognised as important, and so is the link between climate change, agriculture, and supply chain resiliency. We clearly need to find more accessible solutions and quickly. Thanks, ICE. Next screen. Yep, great. One recognised solution in closing their loop on food waste and food security is insect bioconversion. It's an exemplar of the circular economy in action. The most common species is in insect bioconversion is the black soldier fly larvae. It's a native of tropical ecosystems, and it's designed by Mother Nature to rapidly decompose organic material. In a controlled environment where we can farm them commercially, we can harness this natural superpower to recycle waste and produce a sustainable source of protein for livestock like chickens and aquaculture and pigs, and also produce an organic fertilizer, which is called frass, to improve soils and productivity on food producing farms. The entire life cycle is approximately 42 days and requires very little land and other resources. Thanks, ICE. Here's a simple case study of insect bioconversion in action in Myanmar, thanks to our colleague Dave Allen. Each week, farmers collect food waste from a local market, and since being trained and educated on the benefits of black soldier fly larvae and how to farm them, they're able to convert that food waste into a nutrition or source of protein for their chickens that they can produce to sell for meat and eggs. The frass, or the insect manure, can then also be used as a fertilizer for their crops. In some instances, farmers can sell the larvae or the eggs to other farmers to help process waste in other communities. This demonstrates the ability of insect bioconversion to provide a sustainable source of income and food. Handing it over to Neil. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thank you very much for ADB for the opportunity to participate in today's discussion, and Janine and everyone here today. Insect bioconversion of garnished waste is replicable across Asia. The methods are simple and easy to learn by young people and women. It can be implemented in cities and in the countryside. It is useful in areas lacking waste collection, such as in informal settlements, and is a powerful tool when farmers cannot afford expensive fertilizers and animal feed, as we have seen during the COVID pandemic and during the Ukraine invasion. This project in the Philippines have shown that specific beneficial microorganisms are useful in treating organic waste to prevent the spread of pathogens and to promote the reproduction of black soldier flies to rapidly convert waste into a nutrient-rich animal feed and a powerful biofertilizer. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Ice. Insect bioconversion is not new, and eating insects go far back in human histories. Asians have a culture of eating insects as a natural and inexpensive source of energy and essential nutrients. With recent scientific and technological advancement, entrepreneurs were quick to capitalize on insect bioconversion thanks to FAO in 2013. And this is to provide sustainable protein for the aquaculture and the pet industry. Securing supply chains attract large investment in several companies in the hundreds of millions. Across Asia, investments in commercial facilities are relatively smaller but rising. And next slide, please. Investments in commercial scales are driven by a global market demand for sustainable biomaterials with a positive environmental impact. Insect fats and oils have found a high-value application in cosmetics, whereas medical applications of insect-derived polymers are foreseen with rapid advancements in R&D. Applications of high technologies are also driving growth in the industries. This include gene editing and enhancement, engineering, automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, food and feed processing, and chemical engineering. Insect bioconversion is suitable for the transition into the circular economy of ADB member countries and can be integrated in ADB priority targets. Investing in food waste bioconversion into insect protein and fertilizer may reduce global insecurity risks of Asian countries from global supply chain disruptions. Next slide, please, Ais. Here we can see clearly the impact of insect bioconversion in food security, where converting 100 kilograms of waste in dry matter content can provide farmers with 10 kilograms of protein and 20 kilograms of biofertilizer in as fast as 2 to 3 weeks. Now, with regards to the climate change discussion, it has a very minimal greenhouse gas emission compared to current windrow composting. And that's very, very meaningful, especially to me with regards to the global methane discussion. Large commercial companies who are producing large quantities of black soldier fly consume large amount of electricity for processing the larvae. And there's opportunity for renewable energy use in these companies. Now, with regards to disease control, the properties of black soldier fly can prevent the spread of Salmonella and E. coli in the environment by making the compost free of them. And their activities suppress the population of houseflies in the environment. When fed to animals, it increases the survival of young animals, such as in the case of chicks, pigs, and fish. And when the frass is used in agriculture, research in tropical countries, including Africa, have shown that there is 2.5 to 5 times the increase in vegetable yields. This means a lot for food security. And then with rapid losses and desertification, the use of frass in combination with microorganisms and biochar can increase carbon drawdown in the soil. Next slide, please, Ais. Right. Sorry. By leveraging the ecological services of insects that have sustained life on these planets for the last 300 million years, society can sustain life in cities with a cleaner environment. It can secure our food supply and create green jobs and provide livelihoods to communities and address climate change and protect biodiversity, especially with regards to the issue of soybeans in the tropics, and also the overharvesting of fish. Next slide, please. We have been able to map the advantages of insect bioconversion, I and Janine, to the policies and objectives of the ADB. We strongly believe there is sufficient evidence to validate the environmental credentials of insects as a solution to food and feed security, climate action, and in reducing poverty. In terms of action moving forward, we can see working towards guidelines for farmers and consumers to mitigate risks. We advocate for insect bioconversion and inclusion in development in the development agenda. We also see that there are opportunities for education and training throughout the value chain, and we find that we can develop accessible in language resources and working with local farmers and governments to develop an agribusiness value chain, including waste management as a service and insect products. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Janine and Neil, for very insightful content today. I think, as you said, the timing cannot be better. And for us in ADB, especially food loss and waste is one of those subjects which is a must-have in our operations kitty, but we have not been able to, move as much as we would like. And I think technology such as bioconversion is definitely.
Naveen, you're very soft. You're coming in very soft. We can't
Okay,
hear
sorry.
you.
Yeah, can you hear me now? I had my mic up. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah. So I think it's very timely, and for ADB, as I was saying, it's very it's very important because this is one area where we would like to really expand upon, right? And need collaborations from private sector, especially in this regard. So thanks a lot on the inputs. So now I will take questions from from the audience. Eva, if you can want to give me some questions, that's great. So I think maybe I'll start with myself. I think one question that I had was on the impact of this protein on especially livestock, right? And how is there anything that when we talk about insect protein, things like people tend to get worried, right? So I mean, how do you as a company, with a motivation to to be profitable, how do you make it happen? Something there would be very interesting. Another question is the current state of market, especially in South Asia, where you feel like there is some movement, and some insight on that also would be very helpful. So yeah, thank you.
Neil, may I take the first question and you take the second question?
Yeah.
Just on the first question, I guess for my business, where our focus market for the insect protein is in the pet food space, and that's the commercial reason is that we can command a higher value for pet food currently in Australia, and this is the case overseas as well. There is a lot of research around the benefits of insect protein in animal food, and that's particularly pet food, around gut health and hypoallergenic source of protein. So that's really interesting. And that carries over to the livestock space as well. And Neil probably has some more facts on this, but it's been demonstrated that the inclusion of insect material into livestock and aquaculture feed has a range of benefits in terms of its digestibility, its transfer into active protein, fats, amino acids. So it's quite a complete source of nutrition for animals, and it's something that animals naturally would eat in their diet. So I don't think it's something that's should be feared by the consumer as being part of the food chain. Particularly, you watch chickens at any place in the world, and that's what they naturally do, is scratch for grubs and insects in the ground. So yeah, and fish as well, fish species that are insectivorous. It makes sense to feed them a natural source of protein rather than something that's not naturally found in their diet. So yeah, lots of research around there that can assure consumers that it is safe to have in the supply chain.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. With regards to how to make it profitable, I believe, as I have mentioned, supply chain, securing the sources of the raw material, such as the waste from industrial processing of food. Example would be breweries and coffee. So spent grains can decompose and rot and smell easily in a matter of 24 to 48 hours. And we have seen with the spent brewer's grain, this can be converted into insect protein and prevent the formation of odors and the growth of pathogenic microorganisms. So you prevent the waste from becoming a pollutant, and then you convert it into a concentrated protein source for livestock. So if in places where you cannot process or store spent brewery grains, example would be in Vietnam, where there are some breweries. The use of insects in converting spent brewer's grain is creating value, especially for BSF companies. Now, I'm sorry, Naveen, I lost the second question.
My question was on the state of the current market, in this topic in Southeast Asia and Asia in general, right? So, what is your insights? How fast you think it's growing? Any thoughts on that would be helpful.
Yeah, in Asia, well, I served 2 years during the formation of the Insect Association in Asia, and up to date, there's 41 companies operating, but in my last count, there are 24 producing companies, and one of the previous president of the association mentioned 50. So I'm not aware of everyone, but I do know that there are 24 producers, and then there's one new incoming player in Thailand, and he's using a spent brewer's grain. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, investments in Asia are only in the tens of millions as compared to hundreds of millions in Europe. It's around 1.5 billion investments since 2016. There's an exponential increase in investment capital to support commercialization of insect bioconversion. So we know that there are interest in the range of 100 million plus or more. But I do believe this will be within this decade. Yeah.
Great. So we got a few more questions actually, and I think people are interested. So I think I'll take 2 questions at a time, for your consideration. The first one that I would for this round is, it would be interesting to learn more about insect polymers for bioplastics. Is there any non-protein related applications of this insect bioconversion, right? That is of interest. So some thoughts on that would be nice. So as someone else asked us, is there any risk for alien invasive species through insect farming when it is done at scale, right? Because once the industry scales, it is natural for genetics to come in, so you can immediately draw a very bad picture of mutant insects going all over the place. So so what is the story on those two, on that question? So I think some thoughts on that.
Go ahead, Neil. This is your...
Bioplastics first. Okay. There are actors in the United States and in Asia that are considering the use, and also in Europe, especially Italy, where they have found the conversion of the exoskeleton, the chitin material, into a polymer that can be applicable to agriculture. Let's say microplastics in the food chain. We get that in vegetables because they use plastic sheets to cover the soil. So that's one application. And then researchers have found that by chemical processing of the insect exoskeleton, that is like the cocoon after they hatch into flies, that can be processed chemically and physically into, let's say, fishing gear, and let's say the lure and the lines that is used for fishing. And we know that ghost nets and plastic materials used in fishing is destructive to the ocean biodiversity. And I believe that with biodegradable plastics from insects, this is a future opportunity, especially for a growing industry. Janine?
Oh yeah, I agree. I've seen research around making medical plasters for with some insect biomaterials in it because of its antibacterial, antimicrobial properties, which is interesting. On the second part question around alien invasive species, I think it's just, as with any good farming practice, you have your protocols and procedures around around your farm and the safety and well-being of not only your staff but your livestock. So yeah, so that's why it's really important that those guidelines are there for good farming practices. Similarly, if you're running a poultry farm, you'd want to know what kind of critters are coming in and out of your poultry farm to reduce the risks of disease and that sort of thing. So if you see a commercial insect farm, you'll see how very controlled the environment is. It's not like there's flies running around everywhere and insects running along the floor. It's not in the farmer's interest to have that lack of control in their systems. So they are quite well engineered and sophisticated farms.
Okay, great. So I'll take two more questions. So the first question comes from Kang Dong Nguyen. He says, in Vietnam, we transferred the BSFL to farmers and we changed their skills. Now the question is how to export the product, right? So maybe some thoughts on that. And next one, I think you already answered the question on, protocols, right? So that's okay. I think maybe some insight on at a macro level. Is there, because in the G20 meetings, we noticed that there was some reference to insect farming, just as an example, right? In the documents. Would like to know more about at a global scale, how is the policy environment kind of, moving in this regard, right? Is there anything at a large scale, at a country level or multilateral level that is happening that I think ADB should be aware of in the insect bioconversion space? So these two questions, please.
Yeah. The latter question first would be with regards to safety regulations. As long as the hygiene protocols are followed, which are set by the European Commission on food and feed safety, such as in the case of the feedstock, it should be vegetable matter or fruit waste. So no animal byproducts should be fed to the insects to make it safe. This is in relation with regards to the classic case of the mad cow disease. So Europe doesn't want that to happen ever again to their livestock industry. So that's one. With regards to the FRAS,
before the first question, right? Before I answer the first question, I think the person who asked the question, and Hang Duong, he raised his, raised his hand. So maybe can you just unmute yourself and maybe explain the question in greater detail? Go ahead.
Thank you so much about for the conference. This is the first time, and I would be share about you some information in Vietnam. I'm from Nông Lâm University. I did the black soldier flight around more than 20 years, but in this case for working with the student only. By the way, it's about research, not applied. But about last year, I tried to make the policy marker to Vietnamese government to do you see about the law for the black soldier fly development, such as about animal production, something like that, for responsibility on protein source for the fish production for aquaculture feed. So by the way, we try to continue for working with them, and then they already allow for the law to develop this one. This is very useful for the farmer in Vietnam to do, how to work with the black soldier fly. That is we confident to do with this one. That is very new, just only about new information in this year. Right now, you know, I got about some project from Sweden, CEDA funding for how to change the farmer, how to make about the skill on working the technique like Dr. Lumanan mentioned about there are separate two ways, the first way for food and the second way for feed. And then you know about for food for the human consumption, they prevent about the pathology, about the disease effect to the larva before food production to the human. But for the feed, they already done by using about the waste from the food processing factories in the field, and then they add, and then we carry out some data and we public about some paper for to show the farmer how to optimizing the diet for the larva during the period. I agree with about Dr. Luman. You already done very well.
Excuse me, can you keep your question short, please? Ask the question. Thank you.
Yes. By the way, so you know about that is right now we get a big problem how to export, how to make the optimize balance with the feed, the food to the farmer, and they can get the benefit from that, and then they develop more. That is a question to the ADB project or something like that to do develop in the region. Thank you so much about for your information. I'm very happy to share with you about that one. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Neil and Jenny.
Yeah, let me try my best if I understood the question clearly. So it's about exporting black soldier fly protein outside of Vietnam. I believe one of the big players there are exporting it to other countries because of their system in place where vegetable matter such as brewery waste. So it's produced in a very clean and controlled manner. Now, if that is followed, of course, you can export to the destination country following their rules for feed safety. So just don't use animal byproducts such as from livestock. The use of manure also is not allowed in the EU because of, because of the mad cow disease and also the potential of transfer of pathogenic microorganisms. Now, with regards to a greater value, I believe would be the fertilizer. It has to be sanitized with thermal application. So it has to be heated at a certain temperature to kill all the potential microbes.
All right, thank you. So I have my colleague Narayan Iyer with the question. So Narayan, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
Thanks, Naveen, and thanks to the organizers. Interesting session. It was not a question, actually, it was just a comment actually supporting this whole concept. Not many know, but I think PSOD last year had evaluated an investment opportunity in this space. Fairly large business in a French company. They were raising almost 200 million euros of equity. This was follow-on rounds of funding. And they were doing black soldier fly. And they were using wheat and corn stillage as raw material to grow the insects, and from that they were producing, I think, aqua feed and then some kind of oils for I think poultry business. So, and then they had kind of a symbiotic relationship with suppliers of the raw material that they had. So it was a pretty good model. And I think from a scaling up perspective, that's the kind of model that appears to be most promising. Otherwise, typically you grow, I've seen, black soldier fly, businesses trying in India, trying to establish themselves. But getting consistent supply of raw material is usually, a bottleneck. So it's a pretty good scalable business if you get it right, and all the benefits that have been pointed out are absolutely on the dot. So just wanted to support the fact that this is a fantastic idea. Let me stop there.
Thank you, Narayan. So I think to adding to Narayan's comment, so one additional question on that would be, so it goes back to my colleague Kazuko-san's this one. She says about, is it possible to know how much carbon dioxide and methane would be reduced as opposed to business as usual, with food loss and waste? That's one thing. And adding to that, any thoughts on how can we possibly generate carbon credits for for using food loss, food wasted, to to be converted through this insect bioconversion process? Any thoughts on if there's a possibility for carbon credits, basically on the mitigation side? Yeah, some thoughts. Thanks.
Just a short answer to your Kazuko's question. Yes, there's been quite a lot of studies on the carbon footprint of insect bioconversion when compared to other food waste technologies, and I'm happy to share that with ADB and possibly include that into your data library, because I think it's quite interesting when you particularly significant when you start considering the use of the protein to substitute some of those other less sustainable sources of protein in agriculture. So very happy to share that. And the other point about carbon credits, yes, so there are examples around the world where certification has been granted to insect bioconversion companies for carbon credits. And again, happy to provide the references to those companies.
Yeah, that would be great, and thank you. And I invite my colleague Stephen Peters. Go ahead.
Thanks, Navin. Hi, Janine. Hi, Neil. How you going? Thank you for your presentation. Very good. I'm just wondering, Janine, if you're anywhere near Border Town.
Well, Border Town, Barossa, yeah, everything's about 2 hours away, I guess.
Okay, no worries. So, okay. Just one of the things I wanted to say, I run waste to energy within ADB. So I'm in the energy group, and we're actually having a presentation on our internal guidance note in a couple of hours. So I wanted to attend this meeting, and I really appreciate the work you've done and the commentary you've given. I've just got a couple of pieces of feedback. With any feedstock, there's competition. So you might be in competition for biogas, you might be in competition for fertilizer, for compost, or people making biochemicals. And the other thing too is what we're finding very commonly is everybody wants to do the big $30 million investment like the guys in Johor, and get the big bucks and be a big superhero, when in fact that model may not be the correct model. What another alternative model might be that you work with a group of small producers. Like in Indonesia, there's thousands of them. And even in Cambodia, there's one in the capital city, very small scale, but very undercover. And work with those smaller facilities to then ship their product to somewhere where it can be processed, especially when you're looking at bioplastics. And I think the other thing that you should give some consideration to is that it's not all just about the export market for Europe. There's a large amount of local consumption as well. So if you're talking about people who are able to take animal waste and mixed food waste and restaurant mixed food waste and convert that to bioplastics that can be then used for making plastic bags or something like that, that then end up going into landfills, then that might be a solution. But you want to be careful that that doesn't end up going into industrial or agricultural plastics or people's yards. So there's a bit of thinking about what the alternative pathways are. So it's not just, let's feed it to the chickens and we're all happy, which is pretty much chickens and fish in Indonesia. Possibly there could be a little bit more thinking on that. And I thank you, Navin, for arranging this. This is a really useful tool, because the numbers of the amount of food waste we have up here is just phenomenal. And we have a lot of waste to energy projects. So we commonly get asked to build, a 2,000 or a 3,000 ton incinerator. A third of that, or 40% of that, is for wet food waste, which is just a complete waste of energy. It's like boiling water. So this is a good small scale solution. I would just say that it's not just small producers or big producers, but I think there's a model in between that should be explored. So I'll finish off there.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
agree with your comments, Stephen. And we do think that the size of the problem warrants multiple solutions in this space. And so we're not, saying that insect bioconversion is the only solution. And we just think that it should be considered in the menu of options. And I really agree with you around the mix of business models. Something that we're really interested in is the opportunities for cooperatives in the insect protein producing space. And I think that a cooperative business model would suit a lot of these, small villages. They can collectively, develop their products. They can have more control over the price. So yeah, I think there's definitely more discussions to be had around business models, size of businesses, and then waste streams. As you may already know, black solidify larvae have a really diverse diet. We've done trials with banana waste, banana plantation waste, with coffee grinds. So there's really not too much that these little critters won't process into some kind of valuable product for their farmer.
Yeah, that fits right into what we call just transition. That just transition that's a very good tool for that, especially when you're talking about cooperative models. I'm happy to chat more about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
May I add something with
Please go
regards
ahead.
to energy? This insect species has a propensity to produce large amounts of fats and oils, as much as between 30 to 40% of the dry matter is made of lipids. And many have done research into this across the globe, and their target is applications that includes biodiesel. So food waste that is not considered, or even manure, even crop residues such as straw, can be treated to make it digestible to insects, and then the fats and the oils are converted into biodiesel. So that's one technological pathway where food waste or even mixed waste that are deemed unsuitable for recycling can be channeled into the biofuel sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting discussion. Any other questions from the audience? It looks like we have no more questions. Yeah. So again, I think thanks a lot to both our speakers, Janine and Neil. And this is it's a very niche topic, but I think it's a very essential topic. So really appreciate your inputs, and please do share those references that you talked about, and also we'll share your contacts with interested audience, so that they can communicate with you directly. So with that, then allow me to close the webinar for today. Again, thanks to everybody in the audience for being today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Neil.
Very much.
All right.